A soldier returned after 6 grueling months on a misty, gunpowder-laced border, but he didn't go home. Instead, he went straight to his young daughter's elementary school. When he saw her slumped motionless in an empty classroom, a chilling silence hanging heavy, and her teacher whispering something close to her ear, the instinct that had kept him alive on the battlefield tapped out a silent, terrifying warning. Something dirty was secretly clinging to his child. What hidden horrors lay beneath the seemingly ordinary halls of Oakwood Elementary? The clock read nearly 5:00 p.m. when Lieutenant Daniel Vargas, fresh from 6 months of relentless duty, arrived at Oakwood Elementary. He hadn't bothered to change out of his dirt-traced uniform, the shoulder board still displaying his rank. In his hand, he clutched a well-worn stuffed bunny, a toy his daughter Mia couldn't sleep without. He smiled faintly, recalling her cries when she'd once left it behind. But the empty, silent hallway, devoid of cheerful giggles, quickly erased his smile. Everything seemed frozen in the slanting light. He found Mia in classroom 4B, her small frame hunched over her desk, shoulders shaking, face obscured by her hair. Next to her, her teacher, Miss Holay, stood hunched, whispering something close to Mia's ear, her hand resting on the girl's back. Daniel gently pushed the door open, the soft creak like a sigh from a weary school. Mia startled, her eyes red-rimmed and tinged with fear, before snapping into a forced smile. "Dad," she whispered. Daniel hurried over, his heart pounding. "What's wrong, honey?" "Is something the matter?" Mia immediately shook her head. "No, nothing's wrong, I'm just a little tired." Miss Holay, stepping forward with low heels clicking, presented a flawless, gentle smile as if she'd just come from afternoon tea. "Little Mia is just a bit emotional. She missed her dad so much she was tearing up throughout math class, then struggled with a difficult problem." She leaned down, gently stroking Mia's back. "I was just comforting her." Daniel observed the teacher, around 40, soft brown hair, bright red lipstick, eyes filled with years of confidence. But for a fleeting moment her smile faltered, a mask slipping before instantly readjusting. He nodded, saying nothing more, and took Mia's hand. "Let's go home, sweetheart." Turning to Miss Holay, he added, "Thank you for looking after her." Mia gripped his hand tightly, not with joyful enthusiasm, but like someone drowning finally touching solid ground. Leaving the classroom, Daniel glanced back. Miss Holay was still smiling, but her eyes were no longer gentle. They were honed, controlling with an inscrutable gaze. On the way home, Daniel spoke softly, like to a child recovering from a fever. "Dad's back now. Are you doing okay these days?" Mia nodded, her eyes fixed on the window. "I'm so happy you're back," but her gaze didn't meet his. It slid past, as if afraid of shattering something. He stroked her shoulder gently, her body tensed for a fraction of a second, then relaxed. He asked no more questions. He'd been through ambushes in bone-chilling places. A soldier's intuition told him something was wrong, very wrong. 3 weeks before Daniel's return, the second-floor apartment was always eerily quiet. Early morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the old rug. Clara, Mia's aunt, entered the small room with warm milk. "Mia, wake up, sweetheart." The 9-year-old lay facing the wall, unresponsive. Clara gently shook her niece's shoulder. Mia turned, her eyes swollen, dark circles beneath them. She nodded, sat up quietly, clutching her stuffed bunny with its frayed ear. Breakfast was simple, scrambled eggs and toast. Mia ate slowly, without fuss, but also without hunger, her eyes staring into the distance. Clara poured more milk, tentatively asking, "Is anything wrong at school, sweetie?" Mia looked up briefly, then shook her head. "No, I just miss both Mom and Dad. I wish Mom was the one teaching me." Clara fell silent, seeing her deceased sister reflected in Mia's round, black eyes, always with a hint of sadness. "Well, your mom would laugh to see you hugging that bunny like that," Clara said, trying to sound cheerful. Mia didn't respond. As she prepared to leave, Mia quickly and discreetly stuffed the bunny into her backpack. Clara saw it but said nothing. In the car, Mia leaned her head against the window, hands wrapped around her backpack straps as if trying to keep herself from dissolving. Clara opened her mouth to ask more, then stopped. Maybe it's just sensitive childhood stuff, she thought. At this age, it's easy to be sad, easily angered, easy to imagine things. At Oakwood Elementary, 7:25 a.m., the hallway bustled. Miss Holay stood in front of classroom 4B in a light blue dress, low heels, clipboard in hand. Her face wore a standard, familiar smile. "Good morning, little Mia," her voice sweet as molasses, her hand patting Mia's head like a well-behaved cat. Mia bowed her head, silently entering the classroom. Clara watched from outside the gate, then turned the car, feeling only a thin mist in her chest. But as soon as the parents had left, the classroom shifted into a different reality. "Line up properly." Holay's voice was suddenly sharp, brittle as rotten wood. "Whoever spilled the paint yesterday, step forward." The class fell silent. Mia walked slowly to her position, eyes downcast. As she passed, Miss Holay leaned down, whispering, "Walking as slow as your mother. You're exactly like her." A red-nailed finger lightly pinched Mia's left side, not bruising, but stinging numbly. In math class, Mia stared at her worksheet, numbers blurring, pen motionless. As Miss Holay passed, a long, red-nailed finger brushed lightly across the back of Mia's neck, a silent warning. Mia shuddered, shrinking reflexively. Ms. Gomez, a student teacher, observed from the back. She saw Mia's flinch, not from fear of a bad grade, but from fear of being touched. She began discreetly writing notes. That afternoon, Clara arrived early to pick up Mia, who waited near the trees, backpack clutched close, eyes still as lake water. "Are you okay today?" Clara asked. Mia nodded, saying nothing more. All the way home, she fiddled with the bunny's ear as if needing to hold on to something that wouldn't melt away. Night fell. Mia slept in her small room, the nightlight glowing dimly. Clara checked on her, tucking the blanket, stroking her hair. Outside the door, a thick stack of documents awaited. Mia stirred, muttering fragmented words in her sleep. "Mom, don't go. I'm good. I didn't do anything wrong." Clara stood silently, a highlighter still in hand. Those vague words were like a thin crack in her chest. She stepped out, closing the door. In the living room, Clara's tea grew cold. Her laptop screen glowed with unanswered emails and unapproved documents. She sat, facing the window where weak streetlights cast sparse shadows. "Is Mia okay, or have I missed something?" She sighed without an answer, but a gritty feeling, like a pebble in her shoe, weighed her down all night. She loved her niece, but between work, life, and scattered responsibilities, Clara could only care to this extent. She sometimes wondered, was that enough? Wednesday noon art class. Sunlight modeled patterns of watercolor on desks. Children drew freely, giggling, the smell of glue in the air. Mia sat still, red crayon untouched, a blank page before her. The water cup for rinsing brushes sat precariously. Her hand trembled as she reached for the brush, her eyes fixed on the paper, but the brush veered. The water cup tipped. The small sound in the quiet was like a gunshot. Water spread onto the paper under the table. Hisses rang out. A child whispered, "It's Mia again. The teacher's going to get mad." Miss Holay stood from her desk. No scolding, no anger. She walked past, expression unchanged. But as she walked behind Mia, she pulled hard on the girl's hair, just loud enough for two to hear. "Brainless idiot, just like your mother, even death leaves trouble behind." Mia didn't turn, didn't speak, just bit her lip tightly. Soft whispers from nearby tables. No one said it aloud, but the atmosphere became heavy. The two closest children moved their chairs away, avoiding the water, their eyes not on Mia, but on the teacher, then bowed their heads. Mia knew, she always knew, silence was sometimes more painful than ridicule. Her small hand gripped the rag tightly, the damp cloth stained red like blood. Mia's cheeks flushed, not from shame, but from feeling like the only ink stain on a clean sheet of paper. Mia didn't cry. No one saw tears, but in her heart, a door had just closed again. The door leading to where people believed her, or at least listened. In the corner of the class, a boy quietly watched. Aaron, 9 years old, quiet but intelligent. He sat near the window, sunlight creating a thin golden streak. He didn't intend to look at Mia, but seeing that little hand trembling, her mouth clenching until it bled, something in Aaron suddenly moved. He glanced at Miss Holay. She was still smiling, as if she had just said the gentlest thing in the world. The next morning, the Oakwood Elementary Infirmary was busier than usual. Students lined up for height and weight measurements. Mia stood near the end. When it was her turn, she stepped onto the scale without looking at anyone. Her left wrist had a faint bruise the size of a thumb tip, as if someone had gripped it tightly while pulling her arm. Nurse Anna, the school nurse, leaned down and saw the mark. "What happened here, Mia?" she asked gently. Mia paused, her eyes flashing briefly. Then she repeated like a reflex, "I fell while running." Anna asked no further questions, but when filling in the information, she marked the avoidance reaction box and drew a small pencil stroke under the line, "Request further monitoring." These events happened before Daniel returned. Everyone around Mia saw something was wrong, but no one had enough evidence to speak up. People chose to remain silent to observe further. But now that Daniel has returned, he would not let the truth sleep, nor let his daughter continue to suffer psychological wounds. Early morning dew still on the car windows. Daniel Vargas sat watching Oakwood Elementary's gates. Mia sat quietly beside him, backpack clutched to her chest, avoiding eye contact. "Did you eat breakfast okay?" Daniel asked, turning down the radio. Mia nodded. "Do you want me to take you all the way to class?" This time she shook her head. "It's okay, I can go in by myself." Daniel nodded slightly, but his eyes followed his daughter's small steps. When Mia disappeared down the hallway, he didn't leave. He turned off the radio. Silence was a soldier's first language for observation. He got out, pulling his baseball cap low. Simple casual wear, a dark khaki jacket, jeans, soft-soled shoes not standing out, but his eyes still carried the dust of the battlefield. He crossed the yard, approaching the fourth-grade classrooms. In the hallway between 4A and 4B, he saw Miss Holay guiding students to straighten uniforms. Her voice was still sweet, her figure dignified. Parents greeted her softly, some whispering admiration. Daniel hid behind a pillar, observing. A little girl accidentally dropped her pencil case. Mia bent to help her friend. Holay turned, eyes sharp, but as soon as she saw Daniel from afar, her expression softened as if a switch had been flicked. Daniel didn't approach. He only remembered, a change of expression in less than a second, words and body out of sync, a posture tense and controlled, like a soldier in training camp. An hour later, Daniel found his way to the school's medical office. He knocked, offering a polite smile. Nurse Anna was sorting paperwork. "Excuse me, I'm Daniel Vargas, father of Mia in 4B, Anna nodded. "Ah yes, she's a very well-behaved girl. I'm stopping by to ask about the upcoming vaccinations," Daniel said, his voice even. "And I also want to ask about something more personal." Nurse Anna looked up, a little weary. Daniel continued, "Have you ever seen a bruise or anything unusual on Mia? Bruises, scratches, or strange marks?" Silence, just a few seconds, but heavy. "I know Mia is a sensitive child," Anna said, lowering her voice, "and I've also noticed a few things." Daniel sat, leaning forward. "What exactly? Can you tell me more clearly?" Anna opened a drawer and pulled out a health tracking book, opening it to Mia's name. Daniel saw 5 entries in the last 2 months. March 17th, scratch on right wrist, reason fell. March 25th, bruise on left shoulder blade, reason bumped into a friend while running. April 3rd, redness around neck, suspected fingernails. April 9th, tired eyes, sleepy expression, weight loss. April 12th, bruise on left hand, faint marks, student said fell. "I always ask carefully, but Mia only says I fell. It's always the same. I marked it for follow-up, but..." Anna sighed softly. The school only takes action when there is clear verification. No one acts without evidence. Miss Holay is a key teacher. She's well liked. "Do you think Mia is afraid of her?" Daniel asked. Anna nodded slowly. "Surely, yes, but she's very good at hiding it." Daniel left the office, his heart heavy, as if wearing stones around his chest. On the way home, he called Clara. "Have you seen anything strange in Mia lately?" The other end of the line hesitated. "Why are you asking me that? Just tell me the truth." "A few times I've seen her have nightmares, screaming. One night she screamed, 'Don't pull me, don't hit me.' I thought the little girl was missing my sister, missing her mother." Daniel didn't answer. His hand gripped the steering wheel, his eyes on the asphalt road. Outside, a flock of birds flew up from the power lines like a breakaway formation before a storm. That evening, he sat alone in the small study. The wooden table was neat, the desk lamp glowing dimly. In his hand was the leather-bound notebook he still used on missions, a habit of recording times, details, unusual signs. On the first page, he drew a timeline: March 17th, scratch. March 25th, bruise. April 3rd, redneck. April 9th, fatigue. April 12th, bruise. He turned the page, overwriting, all coincide with Holay's class days. He circled Holay's name in the center of a spiderweb diagram. Around it, he drew branches leading to physical marks, psychological signs, avoids contact, defensive reflexes. Another branch, nurse matching records. Then a red arrow, further investigation, classmates. Daniel leaned back in his chair. His eyes were no longer those of an ordinary father. They carried the gaze of a soldier who had observed the terrain before breaking through an encirclement. A soldier doesn't need guns, just needs to know what is worth fighting for. And this time the battlefield was a classroom. The enemy was not wearing a uniform, not holding a gun, but knew how to hide in deadly sweetness. Daniel closed the notebook. Tomorrow morning he would return to school, not to pick up and drop off, but to begin turning over the ground beneath the teacher's heels. Recess, the Oakwood Elementary schoolyard sparkled with sunlight, children pouring out like young birds. Aaron remained on a stone bench, math book unread, eyes fixed on the hallway where Mia huddled on the steps. She hugged her knees, chin resting on her hands, wind stirring stray hair on her cheek. Her eyes stared into the distance as if she were far away from this place. Aaron stood, slowly walking over, sitting next to Mia. He opened his mouth, ready to speak the first sentence after weeks of just observing. But Mia turned to him, pursing her lips, bowing her head like a well-learned reflex. Aaron stopped, his hand clenching into a fist. Just then Miss Holay stepped out of the hallway, high heels tapping lightly. Her face was made up just right, her gentle smile ready as if it had a button. She leaned down, stroking Mia's head in a fake, loving way. But Aaron heard the whisper hissed between her teeth, pretending to be so pathetic. Just you wait. Aaron's hand under the table clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. That evening Aaron's bedroom was lit only by a small desk lamp. Beside him, an unfinished soda can and unassembled Lego. The boy sat quietly, pulling an old black phone from his desk. No SIM, only Wi-Fi and recording. Aaron opened the recorder, pressed play. A woman's voice, cold, restrained. "You are a disgrace to your father, understand." Next, a soft sob, the short trembling of Mia. He didn't shudder, but the headphones were still plugged deep into his little ears. On his laptop, Aaron opened Word and began typing. File 1 mirror 1 wave contents excerpt hallway insulting Mia. Time Monday lesson 2 math. Location classroom 4B right corner of the back row of tables. Note, Mia recoiled, her face pale. He saved the file, carefully copying it to a small blue USB. He didn't know what to do next, just knew this needed to be saved. The living room was still lit. Aaron's mother was on a work call, her laptop open with many Excel sheets. He peeked at her through the doorway for a moment, then quietly closed the door, saying nothing. The next morning during art class, Aaron sat alone at a back table. He fiddled with a crumpled piece of scratch paper, scribbled words, Mia Hall audio proof. He planned to put it away, but fumbling for his pencil case, the paper fell to the floor unnoticed. Ms. Gomez, the student teacher, checked each table. She bent to pick up the paper, intending to return it, but her eyes stopped when she read the words. Her eyes swept the class, then stopped at Aaron. The boy looked up. In that moment, they both understood something had begun. After school, Ms. Gomez knocked on the library door where Aaron was reading. She walked in lightly, carrying only a notebook and the USB the boy had left on his desk. "You're Aaron," she called softly. The boy turned. "I found this." She placed the USB on the table. "And I read that piece of paper, too." Aaron bowed his head but didn't deny it. After a moment, he nodded. Ms. Gomez sat down, her eyes serious but not judgmental. "You know something about Mia, don't you?" Aaron took the headphones from his backpack and connected the USB to her laptop. "I recorded it when she thought no one could hear." She looked at the boy for a long moment. His big eyes behind thin glasses revealed tension but not panic. It was the first time a child had found a way to fight the wrong. She took the USB. "You did a good job, Aaron." That evening, the small apartment where Ms. Gomez rented a room was lit only by the laptop screen. She plugged in her headphones, turned on the audio file. Her finger rested on the touchpad but didn't move. Holay's icy voice rang out. "You stupid kid, you're embarrassing your father." She paused, taking a deep breath. The next sound was trembling. It wasn't clear who it was from, as if what was ringing out wasn't just a voice, but the entire obsession a 9-year-old was struggling to endure. She pulled out the headphones. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes were no longer vague. Part of the truth had escaped the screen of lies. It wasn't enough to convict, but enough to start a breaking down. Oakwood Elementary School, after school hours, it became deserted. Ms. Gomez stood in front of the medical office door, in her hand a small USB wrapped in tissue paper. She had hesitated all afternoon but finally decided to knock. Inside, Nurse Anna sorted medical records for the weekend. Gomez walked in quietly as if carrying a discreet wind. "I need you to hear this." Anna looked up, her eyes not surprised, just sunken. The two women sat opposite each other. Gomez plugged the USB into the medical laptop, opened the file. Not saying a word, Holay's voice rang out. Gomez turned it off immediately after that sentence. "The student who gave me this section is named Aaron." He recorded it twice. Anna sat still. After a long moment, she spoke. "I know something's wrong, not just today, but I don't have anything specific until now." She stood up, opened the file cabinet, pulled out the medical book, and placed it on the table. "Here are all the notes about Mia, every bruise, every sign of avoidance. I marked it, I reported it, but no one did anything." Gomez looked at the book, then looked up. "We can't let a child face this alone." Anna nodded softly. "So we need someone who believes us, someone tough enough to pull the truth into the light." She looked at Gomez. "We need Daniel." The next afternoon, a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town. By the large glass window, the setting sun streamed through bamboo blinds, casting shadows on the wooden table. Daniel Vargas sat waiting, shirt sleeves rolled up, notebook placed in front of him. He had read it 3 times, but still flipped through the first page, then back to the end. The doorbell rang. Clara stepped in first, hand holding her purse zipper, eyes full of hesitation. Following her were Ms. Gomez and Nurse Anna. Sat down, not ordering water, no need for an introduction. Clara spoke first, her voice choked. "I've seen Mia acting strange for a long time, but I didn't know what to do. I just thought the little girl missed my sister, missed her mother." Daniel shook his head. "You're not the only one." He looked directly into their eyes one by one, then said, "I used to face enemies on the battlefield, but I won't accept letting the one standing behind my child go." Gomez took out the USB. "Here is the recording." Miss Hollay's voice is clear. Anna opened the medical book, comparing. All the times Mia was injured coincided with her classes. Clara bowed her head. "Some nights Mia screamed in her sleep. She said, 'Don't pull me, I don't understand.'" Daniel opened the notebook. The middle page was the spiderweb diagram he had drawn from the day before. In the center was the name Holay, surrounded by small branches, bruises, avoidance, anonymous words, recording, psychological signs. He drew another branch, Gomez eyewitness testimony, Anna medical records, Clara psychological behavior at home. "We have evidence, we have witnesses, we have a behavioral pattern." But Anna hesitated. "If we give it to the principal now, they will cover it up for her. Miss Holay has a good relationship with the parents on the board. So we need to go further," Daniel said. The atmosphere in the coffee shop sank. Everyone understood that what they were about to do could lead to a fierce reaction. But that atmosphere also carried the feeling of someone standing on the right side for the first time. Gomez clenched her hand. "I've contacted a lawyer from a child protection organization. If there is evidence and medical confirmation, they can force the school to open an independent investigation." "Need more stories from students," Anna said. "I have a child who said they didn't want to sit near Mia because Miss Holloway often scolds the little girl. They can testify." Daniel nodded. "I'll take care of that." Before parting, the four sat for a few more minutes in silence. Clara looked at Daniel, her voice small. "You're not mad at me, are you, for not doing anything sooner?" Daniel looked at his sister-in-law, his eyes not soft, but his voice less steely. "We're doing it, and that's what matters." That evening at home, Daniel reopened his notebook. On the first page, he wrote a large line in bold, "The truth is no longer silent." Then he turned to a new page, drawing a plan. Step 1, gather complete evidence. Step 2, contact a lawyer. Step 3, send the file not through the principal, but directly to the Board of Education and Child Protection Agency. He underlined each step, then closed the notebook, standing up, walking towards Mia's room. The door to the child's room was ajar, the nightlight casting a gentle glow. Mia was sleeping, hugging the stuffed bunny. Her eyelids still twitched slightly as if she hadn't finished her dream. Daniel stood silently for a long moment, whispering, "I promise no one can hurt you again this time." Tomorrow morning he would return to school, not as a father picking up his daughter, but as someone who had stepped through war, and this time he would win. Tuesday morning, gentle sunlight shone down on the schoolyard. The school gates were still crowded as usual, but there was something a little different in the atmosphere. A small underground movement, like the smoldering undercurrent beneath the ice. Daniel Vargas stepped out of the car, opening the passenger seat for Mia. The little girl was still silent, but when she got out, her eyes slowly looked around, as if sensing a change she herself hadn't yet defined. He leaned down to adjust her backpack straps, whispering, "Dad will stay for a bit, meet your teacher." Mia looked up, worry flashing in her eyes, but then she nodded softly, not asking anything more. Daniel squeezed his daughter's shoulder lightly, then watched her disappear down the hallway. He walked slowly towards the principal's office, his eyes stopping at every detail, the class nameplates, the stone benches, the security cameras in the corner of the wall. Not a single detail was missed. At the office, he knocked, entering with a gentle smile. "Hello, I'm Daniel Vargas, the parent of Mia in Class 4B. The secretary looked up, a little surprised at the man's calm but clear demeanor. Daniel continued, "I would like to schedule a meeting with the principal. There are a few things I want to discuss." "Yes, let me check her schedule." The secretary opened the computer clumsily. Daniel was still smiling, but his eyes didn't leave the screen she was looking at. "It's not urgent as long as I can talk to her in private and at the right time." In classroom 4B, the morning began with a geography lesson. Mia sat at the back of the table as usual, but her posture was a little different today. She still bowed her head, but her back was no longer hunched over the table. Her hands were no longer clenched as usual. Ms. Gomez sat behind the class, observing. Her eyes followed Mia's every small movement, how she lifted her head to listen to the lecture for a few seconds, how she wrote slowly but didn't stop in the middle. And most importantly, there was no longer the fearful look as in previous days. Outside the class, Miss Holay lectured, then glanced at the hallway window. Daniel Vargas was standing there, not doing anything, just standing, leaning against the wooden railing. His eyes looked straight into the class, as calm as a father waiting for his child to get out of school, but also like someone who had ambushed, waiting for his prey to appear. Holay paused slightly in her words, but immediately smiled. "Children. Who knows what country the Nile River flows through?" Her voice was still sweet, but in her eyes a shadow had just crept into the corner. A soldier's unwavering love and intuition had shattered a hidden darkness, proving that true battles are often fought for the most vulnerable.